Imagine the scene of many men working for hours and hours of their day. Those days turn into weeks, and weeks to months, and months to years. Finally, after becoming weary and tired, they decide to revolt. Revolt against relentlessly working without pay. Revolt against having nowhere permitted to go. Revolt against the absence of freedom. Revolt against slavery. Throwing spears and clanging swords, fighting for freedom against authority. This is 1st century Roman Italy. Imagine a courageous leader who imposed a war on authority. His name is Spartacus. Today we will talk about Spartacus and the raging war in Italy. We are going to give the report about the Italian army versus the slaves of this century led by Spartacus. Early life. Spartacus, whose real name was unknown, was born in 111 BC. He was born in Thrace, which is the modern-day Balkan region. Thracians were a group of Indo-European tribes, meaning they spoke a language spoken in the greater parts of Eurasia, ranging all the way to India. However, the primary language spoken there was Thracian language. Around the time Spartacus was born, the Macedonian War had happened. Eventually, the Romans won and gained full control over Thracia. This caused Thracia's name to change to Roman Thrace, or Thrace. This ruling also turned Spartacus into a slave. Slavery. Spartacus was captured and forced into slavery at early adulthood by Batiatus, a lanista or gladiator. Though he had many skills from being a Thracian mercenary, he was forced to work the mines, till the fields, and to train to be a Roman soldier as a slave. This all took place in Ludus, or an ancient gladiatorial school for the army soldiers in Capua. Ancient Capua is about 16 miles from Naples, Italy, and south of Rome. In this school, recruits would swear on their life to obey orders without question. As part of slavery, he was forced into being a gladiator and into fighting in big arenas for people's entertainment. These rituals did not sit well with Spartacus, and so he decided to revolt.
In 73 BC, in his school, Spartacus led about 73 other slaves through the kitchen to gather knives, skewers, and pointy objects to fight their way out. They also needed to gather equipment, so they hijacked a gladiator wagon for it. They were off into the night, traveling to Mount Vesuvius, where they gained more slaves and trained harder. Rome was too busy dealing with Pontus and Spain, as Rome dismisses this revolution by only sending 3,000 men to surround Mount Vesuvius. Spartacus and the others climbed down using ropes made out of vines in the dead of night. As time progressed, Spartacus became famous and had built his army to around 90,000 men. As Spartacus began controlling villages and gaining overall men in power, the Roman Senate started to really notice. In the spring of 72 BC, they sent roughly 2 full legions to the slaves, which is about 12,000 men. Once again, the rebels triumphed. However, many lives were lost. One of Spartacus's lieutenants, Crixus, died in battle. In order to honor him, many battles were held with the Roman army prisoners. The Romans had to play the games the slaves once had to play. By this time, Spartacus conducted an army of 120,000 members. The path was now clear to the Alps, north of Italy, and all slaves would finally be free. But the army had grown rowdy, brash, and relentless. Spartacus wanted to be free, while some wanted to continue pillaging and robbing, while some even wanted to march on Rome. And instead of turning north to freedom, the army turned south to more chaos. The slaves had almost marched to the bottom of Italy, where they were met by Marcus Licinius Crassus, the new Roman controller of the war. Crassus first punished the Romans for defeat and killed every 10th member of the army. As the richest civilian of Rome, Crassus attacked with 8 legions, 32,000 troops. Spartacus tried to attack, but lost 6,000 soldiers. Everything had gone wrong for the slaves. They didn't have time to escape on ships. The pirates betrayed them, and new legions were arriving from Pontus. The slaves were trapped. In 71 BC, the slaves made their final stand. Spartacus had one shot at Crassus, cutting down centurions around him. However, he was outnumbered by the guards guarding him, and he ultimately died fighting. We do not know where his body is, but when the war was over, the 6,000 survivors were held captive until they were crucified along the Appian Way. This was Rome's threat to all future slaves of the consequences of a rebellion, a haunting demonstration of Roman authority. However, today, Spartacus is still known as one who made the mightiest empire crumble.
Based on all the evidence, even though Spartacus was not considered a hero, he is now because of what he attempted to do for the peasants and slaves of the ancient Roman Empire. The slave revolt led by Spartacus was considered triumphant because an oppressed civilization rose up to claim rights which wouldn't have been possible history without his leadership and inspiration. These acts of bravery and loyalty showed that Spartacus led these slaves and made a real impact on the slave wars. His inspiration may have led him to his death, but it also led his soldiers to a moral victory because they finally believed that they had made a real difference in the history of our world. Even though we believe that Spartacus was the central leader of the slave revolt, some believe that Aeneas, a Syrian slave and another leader of the revolt, was the inspirer of the Roman slaves. Aeneas led a smaller revolt in Sicily that ended up seceding for the most part, which is why he is sometimes considered more of a hero than Spartacus. The reason that Spartacus was more of a hero is that he got his men to follow him because they liked him as a leader, but instead, Aeneas got his men to follow him because he previously succeeded at an attempt of revolt. Spartacus has played an important role in society. Even though it has been proven that he motivated his army, he has motivated many people's lives leading up to today. For example, Toussaint L'Ouverture, the leader of the Haitian revolt during the French Revolution, was named Black Spartacus. In order to show the power of triumph and tragedy, many lives were lost by the Romans, Africans, women, men, and children, and many other groups of ethnicities to ensure freedom for us today. If one thing were to be drawn from this documentary, it would be to do the unthinkable. Fight for your rights. Be a Spartacus.